Hey guys, welcome to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, soon to be joined by Chris Halleck. And we'll be talking about the fifth day of OTAs. They have strange methodology for counting these days. This is the second day of week 2, but actually OTAs have been going on for quite some time. It's just they only start counting once we reporters are allowed in. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Next week is mandatory minicamp. That's Tuesday through Thursday. That's when all eyes are going to be on all situations, including the one related to, quarterback. I want to talk about a circumstance today that really doesn't rely that much on the quarterback position, and that's the running game. And I have a question first to ask you. And that is, do you feel comfortable? And I'm using that word advisedly because Mike Tomlin likes to say we don't seek comfort. I'm not trying to hide in comfort or anything here. I don't need comfort in this. So he doesn't necessarily use that as a positive. But are you comfortable in the Tomlin context with the running game? And if you are, why? Why? Look, this was a good, not a great, but a good running team in 2024. The Steelers ranked, I'm looking right at it here, 11th in the league in yards per game, 127.4. That's not bad. Touchdowns, middle of the pack, 14, pretty much dead center. Fumbles, very, very few. I'm looking here for them in the running game fumbles. There were 11, and there were only 3 lost all season, which is also, it's kind of middle of the pack. But the rest of the stuff, the yards that they got, they were a good running team. Now, you take Najee Harris out of the equation, and you can say what you want about the 1,000 yards he would get each season. And I know there are varying views on that because he should have had more for the number of carries, and you still can't take 1,000 yards for granted, but he's not here. And this offensive line didn't establish itself as being particularly proficient in any area. And it's the same group, except that Troy Fautanu's in with 1 game of NFL experience over at right tackle. And yet, even this fan base, which, forgive me, can find a negative in any positive, seems to be completely convinced that the running game is going to be a real strength. Why? I think it's because whenever NFL coaches say we're determined to run the ball, they're just going to be able to do it because they said so. Am I wrong about this? You see this, hear this everywhere. We're going to run the ball. Well, we're going to be a running team. Okay, so let's just say, for example, the Falcons, when Arthur Smith was there, they said they were going to run the ball. They made up their minds they were going to run the ball. They did run the ball. They weren't a very good football team, but they ran the ball. So it's almost like you can just declare it and everyone's okay. DV says I was comfortable with the running game in 2023. But everyone just seems to presume that the run is going to be okay. Ben Goodson points out that if you're going to look at the Steelers, rushing stats, they attempted the most runs. Yeah, but that's, Ben, why I pointed out yards per. Yeah, okay. That's fair. I'm thinking of yards per attempt or yards per carry. They're not that particularly great, okay, in terms of the average number that they gain, and certainly they are not great at first down, which is something that Smith himself has said that he really wants to get going here. But Peripheral Saint says, well, running against 8 to 9 man boxes and not calling an audible, it's crazy. If defenses are going to load up, you have to punish them. And part of the reason that you run against 8 or 9 man boxes, of course, is that you're not all that good at passing. So what ends up around here, because of that, because of the quarterback mess, everyone says, well, listen, if you can just pass the ball, if you can just get a quarterback, you're going to be able to run. You're going to spread the defense out. Did that happen with Russell Wilson when he was throwing his moon balls up? No. They kept stacking against the run. They kept stopping the run for the most part, especially on first down. So, listen, my own stance here. It's reasonable to be excited about Caleb Johnson. It really is. I like this kid. Had some time with him this week in OTAs. Got to talk to him a little bit. It can take a little bit of work to pry out what you want, but it's there. And he's new, and he's not going to be Mr. Boisterous and talkative. He told me how much he respects the help that he's getting, the genuine, heartfelt help that he's getting from Jaylen Warren, who's supposed to be, the guy competing for RB1 or whatever. He said that Jaylen has just been a godsend for him. And everybody here knows how I feel about Jaylen as a running back. I've been pushing for him to be RB1 for a long time now. I hope he gets this opportunity and seizes it. It would be great. I am not questioning them as much as I am questioning the run blocking, and I am questioning you for seeming to be ceaselessly optimistic about this. It's not like you. I don't recognize you when you're talking about the running game. Why do you do this? Adam says, I think people are more hopeful for Caleb compared to Najee. Yeah, because he's young and you've yet to see him. That's a sports fan thing that is as old as time. We love the new guys. We haven't had a reason to not like them yet. Adam says, and I feel better with Frazier and McCormick on the line in year 2. Fautanu healthy and Broad on the left. You can throw Isaac in there. He's still a good player. But you can't find anybody to say a disparaging thing about this running game. And no one knows what it's going to be like or whether or not they're going to be able to pick up yards on first down. We're going to continue this conversation here with Chris when we come back.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, we're talking about the running game here. We're talking about why everybody just seems so like they don't complain about it. and I don't recognize Steelers fans when they aren't complaining. I have to ask for ID.
No,
do you have a towel or something you can verify?
Well, it's because it's because those who are also Pitt fans are complaining about Beanie Bishop right now. That's the reason why, probably.
Okay, so that's going to upset like whatever half a dozen people anymore with the way college football is going. Then he says, we already have all of our worry wasted at the quarterback position.
Oh, that's true too.
Okay, that's fair.
No,
that's fair. But it all happens, it seems, within this premise that the running game is just going to be awesome. It just is. We want to run. We have multiple tight ends. We're ready to run the ball, and therefore we will. And in fact, if you go over the last, whatever it is, 4 or 5 years, when the Steelers drafted Najee after Art Rooney had told everybody we need to get serious about running the ball, they haven't been all that great at it.
No.
But yet we all think, because here's Caleb Johnson, as Randy says, we're excited. And he's new and shiny. And look, I'm encouraged by what I see on his college film too. But my second shot at college football already in this episode, that's the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got to get it done here, and he's yet to take a single snap in anger. Why is it, you think, Chris, that everybody's so, I don't know, I think it's irrational as it relates to the running game. This is not a completed project by any stretch.
It's not complete whatsoever, and that is the biggest reason. I'm in agreement there. It's the biggest reason why I do think the Jets need to be cooled a little bit on the expectations for the running game. Now, that being said, there's plenty of reason to be optimistic that it will be better and more efficient this season. Jaylen Warren being the number one back is one reason. Caleb Johnson being a good fit in Arthur Smith's offense and the way he wants to run the football is another reason. Kenneth Gainwell being a really solid number 3 option who can also play on third downs is another reason. And then
and do something with those pitches that Najee couldn't do.
Right. But then when you look at the offensive line, yes, and I just wrote about this and put this on DKPittsburghSports.com. You hear all these guys, Mason McCormick today, Zack Frazier last week, Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, these younger guys, especially Frazier, McCormick, and Fautanu, they're not rookies anymore. They've been through this, and a lot of last year, you've heard Frazier say it, McCormick said it today. They are having to do so much thinking last year. Not a lot of second nature stuff because they're being overwhelmed by so much because it is such a jump from the college game to the pro game. And now a lot of that stuff isn't going to be, okay, what are we doing on this particular run? What are we doing on this particular play? Now it is a lot more of, I know what I'm doing. Now I can just play. And I think when you look at all that stuff and you put it all together, there's plenty of reason for optimism. That being said, it's still a very young offensive line.
Yes.
It's also a new running back room minus Jaylen Warren.
Yes. And you mentioned Mason McCormick, and here's a little bit of what he had to say today over on the South Side.
It's been awesome. I mean, me and Troy built a relationship last year, even though he wasn't playing. You know, we work together quite a bit every day, and you know, it's exciting to see him back on the field. He looks really good.
He says you're over-communicative. What does that mean?
I just like to make sure we're on the same page. You know, I'd rather be safe than sorry, and that's just the way I always have been, and I think it helps.
You guys feel like it's time? I mean, the team, the front office, has put a lot of resources into the O-line the last couple of years. Do you guys feel like your time is coming this year, all sort of comes together?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been developing, and it's definitely time for us to step up, and I think we're excited, we're ready, and we're just going to keep attacking every day, and the result will keep getting better.
What did you think?
Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers have become the laughing stock of the league, just above Cleveland. Frank's in a good mood, everybody. Frank just showed up to tell everybody that the world is coming to an end. Hi, Frank.
Oh, my.
This doesn't hurt. I'm just telling you, you can get one of these. You can come down here and get a bobblehead. Actually, we don't sell these. These are mine. So you can't even have that, Frank. Like, you thought your day was you had a chance to get like off the floor, you know, that you could come down here and get one of these bobbleheads, but you can't. These are originals, by the way. This was, I don't talk about them enough. I feel like Mr. Rogers talking about his trolley, but like, this was an original Roberto Clemente that was a giveaway. It's like the best Clemente bobblehead you will ever see in terms of likeness. This was an original Mario that was a giveaway at the Civic Arena. Again, look at the face. Like they've so shortchanged bobbleheads as the years go by.
Yeah.
I think because they now have to pay the Asian children, the 9-year-olds that make these things over there, they have to pay them like 4 pennies an hour instead of 3 pennies. This is the Myron Cope one, which also was a Steelers giveaway. The best thing about the Myron Cope one, this is a young Myron, okay, which is fair. It's a fair representation of a young Myron, is that he's holding a media guide. You believe that?
That's awesome.
One of these days, I'm going to switch these up. But for now, I like having these three. What was I talking about? Oh, Frank, bad mood. Yeah, we're not worried about Frank in his bad mood here. Ben Goodson he throws Frank a smiley face, thinking that's going to help. No chance, man. Frank he's out on today. You know, he's out. CJ is disappointed in Frank. Frank, take your pills, says Jorge. You know, I mean, what are we doing here? It's, you know, Carol wants him to just take a breath. What were we talking about, Halleck? Oh,
McCormick running game. The only thought that comes to my head here recently is I I have a neighbor who lives 2 houses down from me and their entire household are all just gigantic Bills fans. They're going to go to the Steelers-Bills game later this season. They always go up to Orchard Park for at least one game. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, is there a fan base that has had to deal with more in like pain in this league than the Bills? Like, they've got to be near the top.
They've got to be.
Four straight Super Bowls to not win one of them.
Well, the thing is, if you lived through that time, those Bills teams were expected to get every year. I mean, the AFC in general was so far below the NFC that you expected the Bills, the Jim Kelly Bills, to make it, and then you expected what would happen in the end. Now, with the heartbreak, of course, is when Scott Norwood, came along and the game was close, whatever else. I would throw the Vikings into that.
Yeah, that's another one with 4 Super Bowls and no wins. Yeah,
and they raised their own hopes. Actually, the Vikings just lost to the legendary Jim Marshall yesterday. Passed away in his late 80s. But when you're talking about Marshall and Fran Tarkenton and the guys that they had in the 70s, the first team, of course, to break their hearts was the Steelers in Super Bowl IX. The Vikings have it's Chris. The damage gets done is once you're all the way in and you invest and then you lose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, seriously.
Like you could say the Bengals or Browns or whoever, but not really. The Bengals, they pulled you in once. And I don't even count the Kenny Anderson one. I'm talking about the Joe Burrow. I mean, the Bengals were in that game, obviously. That was the catch game against the 49ers. But I don't know that the Bengals have their hearts. Bengals fans get their hearts ripped out, whatever.
But I'm just like my whole point of bringing that up was I understand it's a really rough time for Steelers fans right now, but it's a rough time for Steelers fans right now considering the entire history of the franchise. Like, understand perspective here. It can be worse. It can be a lot worse. A lot worse.
Yeah, and see, when I bring up something that's actually willfully negative, like today, like I'm raining on the enthusiasm regarding the running game specifically, I think it just becomes like, carte blanche, like, hey, everything sucks. I think the running game can be good.
Yeah.
To re-clarify this, I just think that this idea, I actually started this one earlier. I'm gonna find it here again here. This is it. This is the mindset here. Charlie's, I think, is representative. He says the running game will just follow as if it's just something that you want and therefore it manifests. The Steelers have a long way to go to become a good running team. Yes, if they are effective at passing the ball and they distribute the ball, regardless of who's at quarterback, regardless of what kind of wide receiver ads they make, it's going to help the offense. And yes, it's going to back some people off the box. They don't just stop trying to stop you on the run. That's my point here. So a couple of things would have to happen. One is that Caleb Johnson would have to be someone who just waltzes into Latrobe and just blows us all away, which I'm not ruling out.
Well, no, I won't roll it out either. Nope.
Okay. And the other one is that the line will come together. And that's the point that Mason McCormick on the clip we just showed was getting at. They've all done this. I had a long talk with Troy Fautanu yesterday. When you ask them about them, who do they start talking about? Each other, which is really kind of cool. That's what you want. Okay. Broad will say, hey, have you seen Troy? Have you seen what he looks like? Troy will say, hey, have you seen da-da-da-da-da? Okay. And that's what you want. Like that, I don't know.
It takes time, and that's why I do think there. Like I said, to kind of reiterate what I said earlier, like there's reason to be optimistic that it's going to be better this year. I do believe that
better than 11th. 11th is not bad.
11th is not bad, but I also think, but that's 11th total.
That's 11th. I'm sorry, 11th. It's to be specific. It's 11th in yards per game.
Yeah, yards per game, but where were they in yards per carry?
Yards per carry, they were 4.1, and they were in the bottom 8.
That's what I'm talking
in the
about.
league.
That's more what I'm talking about, because you can be top 10
You can,
in yards per game. Yeah, you can literally just run. And that's pretty much what the Steelers did last year. They ran the ball at will. But if you turn that 4.1 into 4.7, it's a whole new ball game at this point. Like, you know, you're going to average a lot more yards per game. You're going to turn a lot of 1st and 10s into more 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 8. You know, it just, they need to be a better, more efficient running team. And I think there's reason to be optimistic about that for all the reasons I listed earlier. But I also do think that we do need to kind of cool the jets on it a little bit, because there are still some very, very good running teams out there for a lot, and that are well more established too, for different reasons, either because they have Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, or they have really, really great offensive lines like the Eagles or the Lions. You know, I think the Steelers can get it done more with the way the Lions do it, because the Lions obviously have Gibbs and Montgomery, but they also have a really good offensive line. But the Steelers' offensive line still has to develop into that. I think we might be 2 years away from seeing this line really, really be like, whoa, this developed into an actual unit. This season right here could be the first real step we see in that direction. And for the Steelers' sake, they better hope that actually happens. Otherwise, that's a lot of wasted draft picks.
Well, yeah, you want to talk about an episode that would depress way more people than just Frank.
Yeah.
The one where you lay out the hypothetical scenario that both of the first round tackles bust. Yeah, that's man. That one requires violins and pianos, all in minor keys, by the way. You know, Sid says the line also needs to be familiar with the quarterback to be effective. I see what you're doing, Sid. You're trying to sneak that quarterback subject in today. We're talking about the running game. That's our commitment here. What, Chris, in your mind, and I'm not going to be the guy who brings up OTA's performance, but OTAs have vibes. OTAs have people talking. Mm-hmm. They see things, they experience things on the field that we don't see, even when we're standing right there on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Because there's an awareness of a first step or mm-hmm. just a familiarity, or the way they carry themselves, let alone carry the football. Mm-hmm. The feel that you have right now as it relates to Caleb Johnson and the impression that he's making.
I mean, it's a lot of positive, man. Obviously, you're hearing a lot more from the running backs themselves, but even whenever you're sitting there watching drills, like especially individual drills, and Eddie Faulkner is working directly with them, you know, each time that they're doing whatever rep, whether it's ball security or pass protection, whatever it is, the feedback is all positive, you know. And whenever you do hear instruction, Caleb's right there absorbing it. And then whenever he goes back into the line, you know, he's picking at Warren or he's picking at Gainwell. And hearing the way Warren has spoken about Caleb Johnson, you know, today, you know, yesterday, excuse me, he talked a lot about the way Johnson is approaching the work, the process, and everything. But then he also bragged and said, "Oh yeah," like people were like, "How's he going to do in backs on backers?" And he's like, "He's going to do fine. He's going to do fine." And we're like, "Oh, okay, you know, we'll see." But a lot of positivity so far.
He's going to learn from one of the better ones, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
Jalen doesn't take prisoners in that thing.
No, he does not.
He's not a big dude, so I'm not suggesting that he's blowing people off the ball or whatever. Okay, but he's just so tough, and it's so genuine and so legit. You can't wait to see. Look, we're guilty too. Look at us, running game. We have this awesome running game. And we just don't know this, you know. That's kind of my point here. Is I feel like I want to actually quell that enthusiasm a little bit, you know. Yeah. DV says that Kenny Gainwell will be such a bigger addition than Cordero Patterson was last year. Patterson's still in the mix, by the way.
Yeah,
I know there's this perception. Yeah, I think there's this perception that he's gone. He should be, but he's not. Yeah. Maybe he's a guy that you just bring into Latrobe and he's, you know, I don't know, you release him or who knows what. But Gainwell will be a bigger addition than Cordero was on a couple of fronts. That includes special teams. Cordero was supposed to be an impact guy on special teams. He, of course, once was that. he was not that in Pittsburgh, and he had one really good game in Indianapolis. Wait, or was it one good series?
It was one good series, and then I got injured on it.
And he got injured. It was a great series, though.
Yeah, it was like he had like 3 carries.
Funniest thing.
So I was just for the chalk talk that I'm going to be posting right after the show's done. I was looking at all the 10+ rushes, like 10+ yard rushes from last year, and those 3 in a row from Cordell Patterson were in Indianapolis. And then I was reminded, I was like, oh yeah, he got injured on the 3rd of those 3, and then that was like the end. Like we hardly saw anything like that ever. So that sucks.
Can we relive that series in Indianapolis? Because that was just too much fun. Here's Najee. It was like it was a comedy skit.
Yeah.
Okay. Najee couldn't get 5 inches on any carry against the Colts. They had just decided you weren't going to run at all. They had 13 guys on the line of scrimmage. They had their assistant coaches, coordinators, their GM, the entire Irsay lineage, the whole family was down there on the field, lined up to stop Najee. And Najee would go to the line and he'd go, let's see, which of these non-holes shall I attack?
Yeah.
And he'd look at all these non-holes and he would say, oh, there's the non-hole that I prefer. And 5 full seconds later, he'd waltz right into it and he'd get thrown down. So this goes on like what, for 2 quarters?
I think it was like a quarter and a half. I think it was second
quarter and a half. It was late second quarter.
Something like that.
That they finally they put Patterson in because Jalen wasn't an option that day, as I recall. And Patterson just goes, I mean, the hole's not going to last forever. I mean, there's one when I get the ball.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and hit that one. And he would just blaze through this thing. Like, and you're thinking, all right, that was actually pretty funny. All right. That was actually, and you can also hear like the press box, everybody laughing a little bit, right? We're human. The next carry is a same thing. And he does it the 3rd time. And of course he gets hurt and never gets seen again. Unbelievable. If any of you remember that, please bring it up in comments. It was one of the funniest things. It was the loudest I'd laughed in a press box since the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell did that same play to the Bengals out in Cincinnati, like 7 times in a row. And everybody, like, here it comes again, and they're yelling out David DeCastro and everybody yelling out to the Bengals, hey, we're going to do that play again, the one you can't stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what, and the thing is that like we're so high up from the field in Indianapolis that there's no way that even as loud as you were laughing that nobody could even hear you. That has to be one of the highest press boxes. I'm sorry, but no, seriously though, it was funny. Like that's probably one of the things I remember most about covering that game was just how entertaining that was, because the rest of the game was just awful. That was James Daniels, tearing his Achilles and being done for the year. They were down 17-0 at like right, and then right before halftime they kick a field goal, and you're like, at that point it's already over. It was one of those ones where you're already writing the gamer like before halftime. You're like, oh gosh, this is.
I will say that I thought that the most significant thing about that game was that. And this was one of the things that gave me belief and still gives me belief in Justin Fields' abilities. He almost single-handedly kept the Steelers in that game. He was just tremendous. Yep. Real show of will on Fields' part in addition to everything else. Jacob says that he had Patterson on his fantasy starters that week. Oh my God, you must have felt like the king of the world. And I felt so much smarter than I should have for exactly those 3 plays.
And if he would have never started Patterson again for the rest of the season, they would have been a lot smarter. But yeah.
Ben Goodson points out about Justin Fields that day. He says, all I remember about that game is that the quarterback with the worst accuracy in the league, and you mean from a career standpoint, hit big play after big play for about 14 minutes. See, that was the Justin Fields that we saw, though, in training camp and even into the regular season. He was just really precise. He has it in him. I don't want to start remaking they need to make Justin Fields the number one quarterback. That ship has sailed in more ways than one. But there was something there, to be had. Captain Crunch says, I always try to be optimistic, but I'm ready for this team to hurt me again. See how the Steelers fans will return to their natural state here. Because they're talking about the running game though, and I feel good about the running game. So I'd rather talk about something else. I want to know why you feel good about the running game. That's today's theme. You have to explain yourselves in this context. It's really hard to take. Chris, if they go against an opponent, again, it's so hard to have these conversations without knowing who the quarterback is. It's just, but today is the 4th of June and we don't know. So if you, regardless of that position, if you're the Steelers and you're lining up, not even in weeks 1 or 2 or whatever, but let's say in weeks, you know how we're always talking about post-bye weeks. The bye week comes early this year because of Ireland. Post-bye week, things come together a little bit for the running game. What's it look like?
I think it's a team that, like, again, you're gonna have. I think it's going to be a little bit closer to what we saw at the end of 2023, but maybe. I think you're going to see a more cohesive unit. I'll put it that way. I think you'll see less confusion, less clunkiness. That's a terrible word to try to use, but clunkiness is what I can come up with right now. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, but I think you're going to at least see the way that this team is going to want to run the football on a consistent basis. Like I said, might not always be successful, but there will be more of an identity and a cohesion along that. And I think that's when you have literally Broderick Jones exactly where you drafted him to be. When you have Zack Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautanu, all rookie years behind them, everything in terms of the mystery of playing in the NFL is behind them. They've experienced it now, even though Fautanu only has 55 snaps. Those are still 55 snaps in the NFL, in which he played very well. I mean, all of that mystery is gone. Now it is more about let's just play football. And so I think whenever you have that and they're already all there, they're already all working together, they're already establishing that chemistry so that you can carry that over into training camp and then into the preseason and into the regular season. I think by the time you get post-bye, I think you're going to see more of a cohesive unit in terms of running the football. That's probably the best way I can try to describe it.
When I think of the Steelers running game and where it needs to be and what it should aim to be, I'm not going to share with you an original opinion. I'm going to echo something from a conversation that I had with Arthur Smith earlier this offseason. And it boils down to 2 words: first down.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to what Chris was just referencing, because we're not on a different page here, believe me. If you're going back to 2023 and the late 2023 season, and a lot of people who are Mason Rudolph detractors bring this up as if it's some sort of criticism of Mason when it's not. Well, because the running game got going. That's why there's one. It got going because there was a quarterback executing actual quarterback plays, and because it started to execute, and because more than anything else, on first down, the Steelers were picking up 5 yards or 6 yards. They didn't turn everything into just this endless slog. Okay, the killer for this running attack, if you want to call it that, over the last half decade has been first down, 2 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now as I say that out loud, I just made everybody just go, because they could feel that.
Yeah.
And they see 2nd and 8, and you see the team line up on 2nd and 8, and you could just picture yourself preparing for the punt.
Yep.
Because it's going to take a couple of plays now.
Yeah.
To get you where you need to go, and those couple of plays aren't coming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whereas you get into a 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4 situation, everything's different. The amount of pages of the playbook that suddenly become viable multiplies many times over. So if you show me a running game where Caleb Johnson and or Jalen Warren, or if you want to throw some surprises at people, get Kenny Gainwell out there and do the pitch, because he can actually do something with that pitch instead of just stare at the football and go, what the heck am I doing with this out here? You can actually make something happen.
Yeah.
And if you have that, and now everyone talks about quarterback this, quarterback that, 2nd and 4, man.
Mm-hmm.
You can get any quarterback to get you 2nd and 4 converted.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is a big thing. And I do kind of like this comment here. I just started from David. If they put 8 in the box, make them need 9. That also comes down to just sheer execution too. You have to be able to execute. You have to be able to just. It's amazing. Like whenever I watch film and I really kind of dive into, some of the reasons why. Okay, why was this play successful? A lot of the times, it is exactly what the players say. It is literally just everybody doing their basic job, what they're asked to do on that play. If the wide receiver is asked to be, if the X receiver is asked to be like, hey, I need you to go inside, I need you to block the safety on your side, or if you say, hey, we're running wide zone here, so the center's got to be the one, he's uncovered, so he's got to block this guy and then go up to the 2nd level and block him and then block the linebacker. And if everybody does their little job, most of the time the play's executed very well. It's not anything somebody did something spectacular where like Patrick Mahomes rolls out of the pocket and does some sort of Superman throw. We're not talking about that. It is literally just everybody doing their basic job. And
execution. It's all they talk about.
It's all they talk about because it literally is. If
it
all
literally
11 guys
is
do their thing, plays work.
Now, we can say all 11 guys do their thing and we can wag a finger at it. But the truth is, for all 11 guys to do their thing, they have to do the James Harrison thing, which is beat the man in front of you. And there are occasions, of course, where the man in front of you is going to beat you. Right. So it's not always just a matter of will or just follow the textbook and you're going to prevail. Right. Sometimes you're actually just going to flat out lose. When I think of this running game and execution, though, I'm going right back to what Chris just said, and I'll echo it enthusiastically, which is a lot of the time they just weren't where they were supposed to be. They were miscommunicating. They were crossing over. And here comes Chris to remind us that the 2 tackles once ran into each other.
2 tackles never both pull in opposite directions. That is never a play.
It's still something out of a Bugs Bunny episode that it ever happened. This is a team that needs to be able to do this stuff and needs to be able to do it at a high level of intelligence and execution. Mm-hmm. When it comes to run blocking, and this is one thing that every offensive lineman throughout history will attest, and it's exactly what Randy just put up there on the screen. He said, isn't run blocking easier than pass blocking? What Chris and I think of that doesn't matter. What they think of it matters. And they are 100% unanimous about that. And it's not just that. They enjoy it more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Now, you can say, well, what's that matter? It's a job. Just do your job, blah, 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 whatever else. Come on. Mm-hmm. Okay, listen. When you're playing your favorite sport, when you're a kid, no one's lining up to be the no fun position. Okay. If you're playing whatever it is, street hockey, you want to score the goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. No one says, oh no, I'll be the right side defenseman. No, man. No, where are you playing? You're playing center because you get to take face-offs and you're doing, you know what I'm saying? You're doing the fun part. Why? Human nature. Mm-hmm. You want those guys feeling it. Kevin Dotson comes to mind for me. KD was always like, just let me run block. Just let me trample. Stop making me move backward. It's not who I am. All linemen are like this. All of them. They all want to run block. But that doesn't make the execution of it easier. It makes the push easier.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. And plus, when you're talking about, wide zone, outside zone blocking, it's not always, as easy as beat the guy across from you. If you're covered, if you're uncovered, there are specific rules. There are specific aiming points that you have to get to in order to execute your block. And then, of course, you're like, well, then if it's so much more difficult, then why do it? Well, because the great benefit of outside zone, wide zone is you give the running back multiple options. When you run a gap scheme, you are literally trying to attack one hole. If that one hole isn't there, the whole play's blown up. But if you are running outside zone and your primary attack point is outside the tackle, that's not there. You can literally cut back off each defender and be like, is there a hole? No. Is there a hole? No. Is there a hole? Yes. Hit it. And then you go. It gives you multiple options. So that's the reason why it can be beneficial. But it is a little harder to block. But when it is blocked well and guys learn how to do it, oh my gosh, it will work.
Danny Blay brings up that I want to see our tight ends get some footballs. Matt Washington could fall forward for the first down. Yeah, okay. The first thing the Steelers have to do is replace Donald Parham, who was going to be a real part of this offense, just because nobody had a chance to learn his name yet. He's 6'8". He was going to present a big, tall, highly visible, and highly available, in all likelihood, target. And he's lost for the year to an Achilles. The Steelers are known to be looking for additional tight ends. We'll see if that ends up being one of the old Arthur Smith guys, Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, and so forth, that he's had in the past in Atlanta. That's a lot of tight ends. That's a lot of tight end targets. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can just bring Michael Pruitt back.
They could just bring Michael Pruitt back. I don't think he's been picked up by anybody.
No.
But,
What
yeah.
do you think the base offense will be, Chris? Base offense, 11, 12?
I think you're going to see a mix of everything, but I think you might see more. I think you'll still see, just because of overall situations, you will see more 11 personnel than anything else. But in terms of overall percentage of 11 personnel usage, it will be probably still bottom half of the league. They will have a high usage of 12 personnel. They will have a high usage of 13 personnel. And just really quick, for anybody who doesn't understand, that's one running back, one tight end for 11, 12 is one running back, two tight ends, and so forth.
Yeah, it's not the actual number. If you had 12 personnel, you get a flag.
Yeah.
Just to be clear here.
So, but that's the way football teams, describe it. Whenever they call a formation, the first thing they usually say is 12 personnel, 11 personnel, whatever, 21, whatever it is. But yeah, I think you'll still see, it's not going to be the Rams. The Rams pretty much run exclusively out of 11 personnel, and they can because they have Puka Nacua, who pretty much is another tight end on the field. But you'll see, like I said, just because of all the third downs you face, everything like that, still probably majority 11 personnel, but you are going to see a high percentage compared to the rest of the league of 12 personnel still.
If you don't listen to Frank and hit the like button, the dark Frank will visit you. That's what he's threatening there. Look how he's trying to throw us off with that smiley face. We see right through you, Frank. We know exactly who you are. Although scuba diving is totally going along with the bit. It says, get them, Frank. We need more likes. David Weiss says, don't threaten us with a good time, Frank.
Frank's really getting it today.
Frank knows, man. We have Danny Blay says, hasn't Arthur Smith been heavily criticized for not using his tight ends? The funny thing about that is when Art came over as coordinator, I did a lot of looking at his analytics with the Falcons offense. And the one thing you can say about Art, and I remember seeing, hearing, and reading the reactions from like all 18 of the Falcons fans about how they would be frustrated with him because you have Jonnu Smith and you have Kyle Pitts and you never use them. You never use them. You don't use them. Why don't you ever use them? And then you look at the Falcons receiving yards at year's end, and the guys who were leading were tight ends, and then there would always be a wide receiver like James London or somebody would be there at like number 2. Okay. But the leading receiver was a tight end. That's obviously not going to happen in Pittsburgh in this arrangement. You have DK Metcalf now.
Yep.
Okay. Who might as well be a tight end, incidentally.
Seriously.
I mean, it's not like he'd walk into the room and they'd say, "What's that guy doing here?"
Right.
You know what I mean? They just pull up a chair. Whoever you are, have a seat. Nice to have you.
No joke.
But he does get the tight ends involved. He doesn't do it to anyone's satisfaction, I feel like, over the 2024 season, because we didn't see enough throws over the middle in general. And Chris, share with the group why we didn't see any throws over the middle in the 2024 season, at least not from week 7 onward.
Because they didn't have a quarterback who wanted to throw to the middle of the field, whether that was out of play action or just in straight up drop back passing. I think the people that were really also, like, just to add another thing, that the people who were probably the most irritated with Arthur Smith about usage of Kyle Pitts and even Bijan Robinson were fantasy football owners who had Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts on their teams because they wanted them to have these high volume touches. And that's just not the way Arthur Smith likes to work. He likes to be able to have a rotation and have people that can step on to keep guys fresh and everything. And that doesn't please fantasy football owners. So yeah, those were people that were the most frustrated about that. So
yeah. And, David Harrison says, I don't even know if he's playing along with our long running joke about, not being able to see Roman Wilson. He says Roman Wilson is actually a really good blocker, but it sounds like David's being serious. And if so, he's correct. And that's another thing to bear in mind here. You now have between Roman Wilson, I just throw Cal in because he does try. I mean, he's not a big dude. Okay. Cal can just take one guy's leg and block that leg. I'm teasing you, kid. And DK Metcalf. So you don't have that weak link that you had with George Pickens out there, or that you had before that with Deontay Johnson out there. You have guys that will block.
Van Jefferson was not he was a willing blocker, but he was not an effective blocker.
There's a difference. There's a difference. And I think that's something else that really needs to get thrown in, as long as our theme for the day was the running game. That really needs to get thrown in.
Robert Woods is a good blocking receiver. Ben Skoranek is a good blocking receiver. When Ben Skoranek
don't insult him like that.
No.
Ben Skoranek is not a good blocking receiver. Okay. He's rabid. Okay. Animal control comes out when he's blocking.
Well, I was about to say, all this talk about 11 personnel, 12 personnel. When the Steelers are in 11 personnel and they have Ben Skoranek on the field, they're pretty much in 12 personnel. That's just I know. But that's pretty much what it is.
That's got to be the best chalk talk ever. If you could pull, I know all anybody does every time you say something now anymore, everybody's like, "Oh, hey, Chris, do a chalk talk on that." I will pay extra money on my DK Pittsburgh Sports subscription.
Okay, I was about to say, I heard pay extra money. I was about to start getting you on the record here.
The Ben Skoranek blocking episode. I want the Ben Skoranek everything episode. His breakdowns of how he would wait. Was it in Landover? It was in Landover. Where he was timing the dude from the Commanders who just could not catch a punt to save his life. Remember that? Uh-huh. He said, I studied that guy forever, and I knew I could tell certain things in his body language that he wasn't going to catch the punt. So I was preparing for where the ball was going to fall.
Yep.
Okay. And he's studying which direction the ball's going to fall in and how it bounces and all that other Ben Skoranek stuff. It's fantastic.
It really is. And again, the best nickname on the team is Arthur Smith giving Ben Skoranek the nickname Dirtbag.
That's actually so good. Especially since he would not take offense to it.
No, I mean, he is literally the best. That is the best. I mean, Connor Hayward is Meatball, and that's a funny nickname and everything. But no, I'm sorry. The best nickname on the team is Arthur Smith calling Ben Skoranek Dirtbag. That is when the Ben Skoranek chalk talk happens, the text on the thumbnail is going to be quotes around it and then just Dirtbag. It's phenomenal. Good stuff.
Oh, wow. Matthew Bunk says it was the Cleveland game. That doesn't sound right. Was it?
Well, Skoranek had a few different games in which he made splash on special teams.
Yeah,
I do
one I'm
remember
thinking of.
Washington. Though,
The
yeah.
Washington guy was an absolute train wreck.
Yeah,
The
he
guy
struggled
from the
with that.
Commanders. That's who we're talking about here. All right, guys. Well, when we come back, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports channel. So we're back. For those of you who don't know, like, this segment of the show doesn't make it out to the masses. This is just for you, really special, important people that are watching. The number of subscribers that we have is 2,400 members. That's why she's the boss. 2,458 is the number. And it goes up and down. And it's actually been over 2,500 for a bit because we had some people that were very generous, put out a bunch of gifts. That does end up over time adding up because those people become permanent members. But we need you to become a permanent member. We need you to do it on your own. And the way to do that is to look under Chris's microphone there and see those words there that say dkps.net/join. You can't click on that, just like you can't click on Chris. What happens when you click on Chris?
I have no idea. Oh, I get a Ben Skoranek Chalk Talk contribution, $20 Canadian. I
was going to say it's Canadian dollars, though, so it's like you get you a pack of gum. I love you, Canada. It's not Matt Canada.
That's
appreciated, and I'm actually pitching in my own. I have some Canadian dollars with me here because I make a lot of trips up there every year, obviously. Sid says when you click on Chris, you get a Chalk Talk.
Well, there's going to be one that drops very shortly after this episode is over. So
what you got?
Zack Frazier is today's Chalk Talk.
Cool.
Looking at his some of the reasons why he was actually a lot better of a run blocker than PFF might have graded him. He still needs to clean up some stuff, but man alive, when that dude, he knows how to use some leverage. I'm being a 4-time wrestling state champion. You know how to use leverage.
The wound is still a little fresh here, but I can't help but bring up our recently fallen great friend, Craig Wolfley, who we were in the back of a press box somewhere. It was on the road. I think it was Baltimore, actually. And he asked me, he said to really, really, really look at Frazier's film. He said, I wish more people could understand what he's getting done downfield. He said, I get that. And I'm sharing this with you now in hopes. I don't even mind if you include this in the article or in the video.
It's already recorded. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, even in the intro or whatever you got there, when you type it up, he would say that he's getting a lot of credit, Frazier is, for what's happening right at the line. Okay. And that's fine. That's justified. But I think because we in Pittsburgh were so spoiled by Marquise Pouncey occasionally doing something 20 yards downfield, and that would always make all the highlights, and everybody would go, oh, wow, what a special creature. And he was. Okay. Yeah. Marquise. But that Frazier is not taking out one guy. He doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. I don't mean to steal your
no. It's literally
he keeps going.
Literally one of the clips in it that I break down. He puts his, like, it's just the way he is. He's uncovered at the line of scrimmage. So the first thing he does after he snaps is he puts a hand on the guy who Spencer Anderson is supposed to get to his left, just to make sure he's blocked up. Then he goes and runs and gets. Right. Helping Spence, making sure Spence gets his block. And then as soon as that happens, he gets, okay, all right, Spence is good. Now I'm going to go run and I'm going to go get my guy who's the linebacker on the second level. He goes and gets the linebacker, and then while he's engaged with that linebacker, he uses one hand to then shove him like back and then reaches over and takes out another guy. It's like,
when is this going up?
And like as soon as we're done, I'm gonna get my computer out and start.
Literally, as soon as we're done, I'm hitting play. That actually sounds amazing.
That play is on there. There's 4 different clips that I broke down on that on Frazier, and yeah, he did some really. You don't see, this wasn't a full blown like 30 minutes. Here's some things that he did wrong, and there's a whole summer to do some of that stuff. But overall game, it still has to improve. But my gosh, when he executes, they got themselves a guy, man, for real.
Good stuff. Guys, as Dwight Jefferson points out here, Chalk Talk is coming up next.
Southside Beat later on, too, by the way.
Southside Beat with Chris and Matt Williamson will be on. They've got a lot to discuss regarding OTAs. Matt, by the way, Matt's out there. Matt's watching all. He's over. Yeah, he's working with the Steelers radio crew.
Mm-hmm.
They're at like a table that's right behind us on the sideline there, but the view is always clear for them. And Matt Williamson has a different set of eyes that he watches his stuff with.
Oh, yeah.
Than we do. So stay tuned for all of that. If you're a hockey fan, hang with us because we're going to do a live show about the Penguins hiring today of Dan Muse as their new head coach. Actually going to be doing that in just like a couple of minutes. So bye-bye, everybody.